Okay, congratulations, you won your lawsuit. You have a judgment against the defendant for $500,000, and they are not appealing, but they're refusing to pay, and they say they're too broke. Well, if they really are broke, then when you press them for payment, they're going to file a bankruptcy, and you'll get nothing. After all of that battle, they file a bankruptcy, and your claim, unless it was a claim for some form of fraud, it's just going to be discharged in the bankruptcy and you get nothing. But for some reason, they don't file a bankruptcy and they refuse to pay, claiming to be broke. What can you do to collect your court judgment for $500,000? Well, there's a number of things you can do. First of all, you can get, there are search services that will look around and may be able to find where these people do their banking. And you can go down to the court with your judgment and get a writ of execution, and the deputy sheriff will go down there and serve that bank, and you can seize whatever funds the guy has in his bank account, and you can apply that against the judgment. Sometimes, if you're lucky, you can get thousands of dollars that way. Unfortunately, when a defendant loses a lawsuit, one of the first things that his lawyer tells him is go down and get all your money out of your bank accounts, because they're going to hit your bank accounts next. So unfortunately, many times, by the time you go down, you send the sheriff down there to seize on the bank accounts, all the money is gone. So if you don't get any money out of the bank accounts, what else can you do? Well, you can get a writ of garnishment if the guy is a paid employee somewhere, if he has a salaried job. You can get a writ of garnishment, and every time he gets a paycheck, you can take as much as 1/4 of the paycheck. That's the maximum amount you're allowed to pay to take, and it's garnished. The employer has to pay it over to you instead of to the guy, the defendant who earned it. And so garnishing the defendant's paycheck will get you a little bit of the payment of your $500,000 judgment, but if he's only getting paid $300 or $400 a week and you're only getting 1/4 of that, it's going to take you forever to recover all of your $500,000 judgment. So it may be of limited value. But if he's working for as a vice president of Hewlett Packard and he's getting paid $300,000 a year, then 1/4 of that paycheck may get you well pretty quick. Also, people do not like having their paycheck garnished. It looks bad to their employers. Employers don't like it because it's an administrative headache for them to keep track of paying it over. And so sometimes when you garnish a guy's wages, the same guy who told you he wasn't going to pay the judgment because he was too broke suddenly miraculously comes up with the money and pays you off to stop the garnishment. So you might want to try wage garnishment. Of course, if the guy is self-employed, has a business, the wage garnishment may not work for you. There is a thing you can do called a till tap, where you can send somebody down to his place of business, and as money comes into his cash register, you can take some of that out. But that's tough to do. What else can you do? Well, you can look around to see if the guy owns any real estate anywhere. Does he own his own home? Does he have any rental properties? Does he have a business that he owns, real estate he owns for his business? You can get an abstract of judgment from the clerk of the court, and you can go down to the county recorder's office in any county where the guy owns property in this state, and you can record that abstract of judgment, and it becomes a judgment lien upon his property. It's a lien on the property, just like a tax lien or a mortgage lien. He cannot sell that property and produce clear title to any buyer unless he pays you off in full out of the sale. And your judgment, if he doesn't pay it, it continues to accrue interest at the legal rate, which is 10% per year. So eventually, if he owns real estate and you get a lien on the real estate, eventually you're going to get paid, but you have to wait. Is there anything else you can do? Well, if you've tried, you can also seize if you find other valuable assets he owns, like if he has a car that's paid off. You don't want to try to get a car that has a bank loan on it because you may end up owing the bank more than you can get for the car. But if he has a car, an art collection, a coin collection, a piece of heavy equipment, anything that he owns that has value, you can send the sheriff out there to seize that if there's not a bank lien on it, and you can have that sold and you can apply that to your judgment. But if you tried writ of execution on the bank and you can't find any valuable assets to seize and sell, and the wage garnishment isn't working, and you can't find any real estate to put liens on, you're nearing the end of your list of options. One of the other things you can do is you can get a court order for a judgment debtor's examination. And you can, the court will order him to appear at the courthouse at a certain time and day, and he must appear. If he doesn't appear, they will issue a bench warrant for his arrest, and he will go to jail. But he'll show up at the courthouse, the judge will swear him in, and he will say, you go back in the back room there with the plaintiff and his lawyer, and they're going to ask you questions. And there's this 9-page long checklist of questions that you can ask this guy under oath. Do you have any of this? Have you hidden any assets anywhere? Have you given any assets to be held by relatives or friends? Do you have any of this? Do you have any of that? Do you have any bank accounts? And basically it's a search list for, does he have any assets anywhere that you might be able to take and sell to get paid on your judgment? Sometimes when you serve a guy with this, the money miraculously appears because he doesn't want to show up for the debtor's exam. But sometimes you go through the whole checklist and you get nothing, but it's worth taking a look. Side note, a funny story about that, if you ever are unfortunate, you have a judgment entered against you that you can't pay, and you do get hauled in for a judgment debtor's exam, one of the first questions that the lawyer will ask you is, how much cash do you have on your person right now? And you go, what? I don't know, I got $20 for lunch, turn it over. And you go, what an incredible jerk, this lawyer. Is he taking my lunch money? You know, it's a $500,000 judgment, I can't pay it, and he's taking my $20 for lunch? Well, that's not the reason why he does that. The reason why he does that is because of a case. There was a case where a guy had lost a judgment, he hated the guy on the other side, didn't want to pay it, and he went to his lawyer and he said, they just hauled me in for a judgment debtor's exam and I still have that one bank account they don't know about. I got $80,000 in there and I don't want them to get that. What do I do? And the lawyer says, well, you're going to be under oath. Unless you want to be guilty of perjury, you got to tell them about it, you know, so you're probably going to have to turn it over. The guy said, no way. He left, he went down to the bank, he drew out all the $80,000 in cash and large bills, tucked it into his clothes, went to the judgment debtor's exam. They asked him all the standard questions about, do you have any money in any bank accounts anywhere? Do you have any cash at home? Do you have any of this? Do you have any of that? Went through the whole list, didn't find out anything about the $80,000 that was tucked into his clothes, left the judgment debtor's exam unscathed with $80,000 in cash tucked in his clothes. The only mistake that he made was he went down to the bar and bragged about it later. The lawyers found out about it later and they were madder than hell. But because of that one case, one of the standard questions every lawyer asks you now at the beginning of a judgment debtor's examination is, how much cash do you have on your person right now? And whatever that amount is, turn it over. So it's not about the lawyer being a jerk. It's about defendants being a jerk about hiding the money.